And now Israel and Hamas have agreed to pause the fighting in Gaza over a 3-day period to allow the UN to roll out a polio vaccination campaign. The move was prompted by the first case of polio in Gaza in 25 years, paralysing a 10-month-old. The UN's hoping to vaccinate 640,000 children in 3 stages, starting on Sunday. Dr. Javid Abdelmoneim works for Medecins Sans Frontieres. He spent 2 months on the front line of this humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Javid, thanks so much for coming on. That feels like a crumb of good news, but I wonder what your reaction is.
Oh, gosh. Listen, it is good news at base, but for me, my reaction is one that I think about multiple things. Firstly, that polio is even there at all is a sign of how much the healthcare system has been dismantled systematically by the Israelis. I also think about the fact that it's nigh on impossible to run a mass vaccination campaign of this sort in that context of insecurity. The displacement orders, the evacuation orders, which force people to be displaced, are relentless and tiring and exhausting and harass the population. Imagine moving at short notice. You find out on Twitter, there's a sort of Israeli Arabic speaking spokesman on Twitter, and they tweet, and a family then has to pack and move because sometimes the violence, the military violence, starts within half an hour. For example, on July the 22nd, that evacuation order was for a whole strip of the so-called humanitarian zone bordering in Khan Yunis, where I was working in Nasser Hospital. It was a large strip of blocks. And within 30 minutes, the mass casualties started. And we had over 230 injured people and over 80 dead just in our hospital alone that day. So, yes, we need a pause, but why is it not a ceasefire is what I think.
Dr. Javid, what is life like living with constant bombing?
I don't know. I mean, I laugh because it was just so awful to feel the shockwaves of the explosions. And you can see the warships on the sea, and you can see the Apache helicopters and the fighter jets. And you feel the shockwave of the explosions, and you can see it ripple across the tents because people are living in tents, and they're moved and squeezed by these evacuation orders into the smallest space along the coastline where there aren't the services, the infrastructure that you need to carry such a large population. So everyone is harassed, everyone is stressed, everyone's in fear of their lives all day, every day. And I only spent 2 months there and I've come back exhausted. And imagine living through that every day.
40,000 people dead. I feel we get desensitised when we just hear a number. And I wonder how you cope. You know, it feels, you see on social media, people say, don't look away. And it feels pathetic for me to say it to you, right? You're holding these bodies. But I do look away sometimes. I can't face it. How do you face it?
Well, firstly, 40,000 dead. That's dead through direct violent injury as counted by the Ministry of Health, right? So there's all those that are still under the rubble because the ministry won't count someone dead unless a body is there and they're identified. The number of dead is far, far more than 40,000. And the leading medical journal of the world counts it at nearer 200,000. So firstly, I just say that. But I've had to look away since I've been home. I can't see those bodies when I'm out here. It's horrific. Palestinians, my colleagues, my staff, they tell me that they feel their humanity is not recognised by the world, certainly not by the Israelis or the United States.
How do you not lose your faith in humanity then?
I focus on the small life-saving we were able to do, the little space. Our ward of 68 beds it was in the end. We started with 23 beds and we had to add beds continuously because you're losing healthcare structures left, right and centre in Gaza. So we got up to 68 beds, but in there we were healing patients physically at least. I mean, the mental health injuries we can't treat yet because the trauma is ongoing and they will last for decades.
Thanks so much for coming on, Javid. I mean, your bravery is pretty amazing and we appreciate your time. Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
Javid Abdelmoneim there, a desperation to get the hostages home, end the suffering of everybody. Medecins Sans Frontieres are raising money to help in Gaza and in conflicts across the world. Head to our website if you want to donate.